What's up, horror fam?
You know what time it is.
Let's get into this.
I didn't get into it again. Sorry. So, yeah, I'm always slacking over here. But anyway, what's going on tonight, guys? We got a really cool show tonight. We've got Tobias Wayland on the phone with us. Actually, you're going to see some video from him, and we're going to talk about some of his books, and he is part of a really cool society called the Singular Fortean Society, and we're going to get some feedback on that, and we're going to let him talk about himself, and I'm sure Ryan's going to talk about himself, because that's what he always does, and I'll probably blabber on with something that makes no sense, but hey, that's what we do, so let's get into this like usual. Tobias, how are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Oh, man, thanks for being here.
Yeah, JT's been talking my head off.
I really am. I'm like, dude, you got to hear about this. I'm
like, great, here comes another restraining order.
I feel like I've been stalking you. I've been all over your website and your Facebook page, and, I've read through most of your book here, and I'm pretty excited to have you here, man. You've got some cool stuff going on, and I can't wait for our fans to hear about it.
That's honestly so great to hear. I love that feedback, so you're not going to get any complaints from me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, since he mentioned it, your website and all that kind of stuff, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, some books, whatever you want to put out there.
Oh, sure, definitely. So, as you already heard, I'm from the Singular Fortean Society. So, most of what we do is paranormal investigation and journalism. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to our website, singularfortean.com. You'll find all kinds of resources on there for different news articles, feature articles, and things that we've written. You'll also find links to all of our social media because, of course, we're on every single social media platform you can think of. You'll find links to purchase my books if you like. We have a link to our Patreon. So if you like what you see enough that you want to be a part of it, there are multiple tiers on our Patreon that you are capable of joining, and we'd love to have you. So
awesome, man.
And you guys also have a podcast going.
Yeah, we had been doing that for a while, exclusively through our Patreon, but we kept getting our friends on as guests, and so we would have these really great guests. And at a certain point, I was like, well, these are some really great people. They've got a lot of really interesting things to say. And so why don't we open at least just those interviews up to everybody, because I love the idea of having it exclusive to Patreon for like a month. But then after that, to allow our friends to promote their fantastic projects, their very interesting ideas about all kinds of weirdness, all of that, like just get it out for everybody. So we do have some podcasts that remain exclusive to Patreon, but those interviews, we've decided to just release those for everybody.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So just so you people know, we actually met Tobias at the Haunted America conference this year, and we struck up a conversation and talked about a few things, and he was gracious enough to come on the show and tell us about some stuff.
Yeah, it's always, that was our first convention, and man, it's just cool to be able to talk to so many different people that are into the same things that we're into, and extremely more knowledgeable than we are on certain things. We slowly but surely are learning some cool things. Like we just had Phantom Science on here. I don't know if you remember seeing them up there. They had like the box for the ghost hunting stuff.
The Ghost Lab
stuff. It was awesome.
Ghost
Lab.
It was pretty cool.
Awesome conversation with those guys. Just learning about certain things, and then JT bought a couple of your books and he's been reading it and he's like, man, this is going to be such a cool conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was like, well, sounds like a good idea. Let's do it,
Yeah. So right off the bat, how did you get involved in all this?
Sure. So, honestly, when it comes to the paranormal, I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I had anomalous experiences. Some of my earliest memories are just being terrified to go to bed, because I would experience a variety of nighttime visitations, and so that could take the form of waking up to the feeling of like hands digging painfully into my sides, or feeling like I'm being lifted out of bed. I would be so scared, I'd like pull the covers over my head like a lot of little kids do. And it would seem like something was outside of the covers, sort of like either slapping them or buffeting them. And those are some of my oldest memories. And so they're not as well formed as some of the experiences that I've had later, but that's from when I was like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
And it progressed since then, never really stopped. And so from a very early age, I was really interested in this kind of stuff, because I knew that what was happening, I'd seeing shadow people, all number of anomalous experiences. Like I knew that stuff wasn't normal. And this is pre-internet, of course. I'm 41. Right. And so when I was a kid, like my only recourse really, because I couldn't go to my parents, they didn't think that any of it was real, honestly, which is pretty common when you speak to witnesses. And so my only real recourse was to go to the library, and I would find from guys like John Keel or Lauren Coleman, Whitley Strieber, Brad Steiger was a big one. And I would read these stories that they were writing about, and I would see all of these experiences that people were having that were in line with what I was experiencing, and that was really comforting at that time, because I didn't really have anywhere else to turn with this stuff. And so that had a big influence on me. And as I got older, I was sort of trying to decide what I wanted to do, specifically in terms with like this subject matter. And it was in my late 20s, probably 27, 28, I decided to start trying to give back in some way. And I started out by volunteering as a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network. And I did that for several years. Yeah. Yep. And I did that for several years, and decided that I wanted to set off on my own, and started investigating independently. And then I met my wife, Emily, and we kind of put our heads together and tried to decide on some kind of collaborative project that we could do together, because she has degrees in photography and design, and my degree is in English. And so I figured, between the two of us, we should be able to put something together. And so we came up with the Singular Fortean Society. And, I do the majority of the writing, but the aesthetic is created by her. And, honestly, I like to tell people that she's the reason that I'm not just some crazy person ranting on the internet, like green text on a black background. Like we've all seen those websites. Yeah. Like that would be me if it wasn't for her. So yeah. It all worked out really well. But, growing up reading those authors, Keel and Steiger and all of them, and then getting into writing myself, I really wanted part of what we do to kind of give back to this community and provide people with the support that, like direct support that frankly I needed when I was a kid and could only really get through books. So, obviously I love writing books, and I love recording stories and getting them out there for people. But I also love, supporting witnesses and being able to speak with people directly, because just having that cathartic experience is really, I think, helpful to a lot of different people, and then if I have any help I can give, like any support, any answers, although those are few and far between. It's always great to be able to provide people with that.
Right. It's hard to give people direct answers to this stuff, because most people don't understand. We talk about it all the time. Experiences are very personal. And until you actually experience something for yourself, you just don't get it. You know, it just doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah. Which is cool. That with technology like we're doing now, and the things that you're doing, you can reach out and help people. Like you said, people don't feel alone. It's easier to find someone that's there has experienced it or would help you out. Even just to talk to that, you know, like you said, you can't talk to your parents about it if you're a kid, because they usually blow it off, you know. But have people that actually believe you and that understand what you're going through and things like that, which is awesome. You know, we started this podcast because we love horror movies. And then the more we talk to each other about things, the more we realize that we had a lot more in common, like with paranormal stuff.
We've all had, we've had some weird experiences, and,
it's really cool. Like I've dealt with that stuff a lot in my life, you know. So have my brothers and things. I've been trying to get my brother to come on and talk about his stuff, but he was really affected with like sleep paralysis. Mm-hmm. And things like that. And like, he won't even watch any form of scary movie in his home. Yeah. Like it has to do anything with possession or anything. Like he's worried that it would bring it in, you know, so it's that serious. But fortunately we all grew up together and we all know what we've seen and things. And we had that there. But now, like I was saying with this, you know, you can help people just to even give them support. I mean, that's a big thing that we all, you know, everyone knows, especially now. It's good to have support out there, to have people that, you know, you can talk to or anything like that, which is cool about the podcast world that we're in, you know, is that we've met so many cool people. And then going to this convention that we just went to.
This convention was crazy for us, you know, because here we are, we're standing in a room with people that have been through the same thing we have and have, you know, are into the same stuff, you know, because I mean, I have a lot of friends that I've had for a long time that, you know, they just don't get it. They don't understand, you know, what it's all about, you know. But,
sure. When I was in my early 30s, you know, after investigating with MUFON for a couple of years, I started, you know, I wanted to do more. I wanted to be more involved in the community. And so I wanted to start going to conferences and stuff, just, you know, to meet people, listen to authors present and stuff like that. Yeah. And the only one I found that was nearby, it was the Vortex conference in Burlington, Wisconsin. It was put on by Brad and Mary Sutherland. Brad recently passed away, which was very sad because
sad.
Yeah, I mean, he and his wife are just the sweetest, kindest people that I'd ever met, because at that time, and still pretty much today, I didn't have any friends who wanted to go to stuff like that. So I had to go by myself. Yeah. And so I just showed up like completely alone to this conference where I didn't know anybody. And it was, you know, it was all super weird. Like everybody was talking about weird stuff. Yeah. And yet at the same time, like I felt so welcome and everybody was so nice. I remember specifically, it was around my birthday. And so the first time I went, Mary just out of nowhere gave me this free conference t-shirt. She was like, you know, I hear it's like close to your birthday. Here you go. Happy birthday. I did not know this person. I had just, you know, met her.
That's awesome.
And so that's what this community can be, you know, like that's
absolutely.
For people. Absolutely. You are just instantly welcome. It's honestly, because I'm big into horror as a genre too. You get that a lot in the horror community too. Mm-hmm. You know, like you would think you would be a bunch of like super edgy people just being gross all the time, but it's not. It's just a bunch of really, really, really nice, welcoming people, because we all get, whether you're into horror or the paranormal, we all understand what it's like to be an outsider, you know. And so when you find like your clan, you know, you're like, wow, everybody is so nice and like so wonderful.
These people are just as weird as me.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
It's awesome. Yeah. And that's kind of how we felt at this, you know, at this conference. It was really cool being there with people like you and, you know, all the different people that were there. And it was just crazy. It was cool. I personally had never really experienced camaraderie, you know, like that. You know, it was neat. It was really neat being there.
Yeah, it's nice to know. To me, it's like you said, it's just it's funny how something that's supposed to be so macabre or, like you said, edgy or off the wall and creepy or whatever, but brings people together. It makes people feel comfortable around each other, knowing that you're into the same things. But more importantly, like we said, knowing that
until next time.
Yeah. No, but more importantly, it's just good to know that no matter what, you got someone you can talk to. And it's cool. For all the bad that internet has done, because it's done plenty of bad, it's done great with letting us connect with people like you and all the podcasts that we talk to. Like you said, everybody's just so inviting. There's no competition. It's just a group of people who are cool with each other and have a good time, and it's awesome. It's after years.
I mean, Tobias, did you ever really think years ago that someday you would be on the biggest podcast in the world with a couple jacklegs from mid-Missouri? No. We're not the biggest in the world by no means.
No. I've done a lot of podcasts. Yeah. But thinking back when I first started going, like specifically, to that Vortex conference, like I was, I wasn't doing anything professionally, like in this field. Like I was just attending it as an attendee, and I was meeting some people that I really respected. I remember being able to meet and speak with Stanton Friedman a couple of times going there, and he was also
that name sounds
an amazingly kind guy. He was a UFO researcher. He passed away a year or two ago.
Okay.
But I have no concept of time, by the way. I think it was it's somewhere between 5 years and yesterday. Yeah. But he was another really amazingly kind person. But if you were to tell like that Tobias that he would have by now written 2 books and done television and appeared in documentaries and be at all taken seriously by other people that he has respected, like in this field, he wouldn't have believed you. He would have thought that you were crazier than anybody else at that conference. Yeah. So, it's been quite a ride. Like it still doesn't feel real.
Wait a minute. Television?
Yeah. So I did, sorry.
No, you're fine.
To make sure that
you're absolutely fine.
Able to get all the way, through this story. But no, I did it was the series premiere of Expedition X, which is a spinoff of Expedition Unknown, and it stars Phil Torres and Jessica Chobot, and I really hope I pronounced her last name correctly. I don't watch a lot of television. And so they were going to do an episode on Mothman, and they wanted to cover like the Lake Michigan Mothman stuff too, specifically Chicago, of course, because everybody is most interested in the Chicago stuff. So some mutual like friends and colleagues, I think that the television producers had reached out to, were like, well, hey, this is the guy you want to talk to. So they reached out to me, and I was the featured investigator for the Lake Michigan Mothman stuff in that episode.
I'm gonna check that.
That's cool. I can actually see that from you. From reading through this book, I'm thinking, man, this guy's been around. He's talked to some people. He's been in the thick of it.
Yeah, see, unlike me, I just listen to a lot of smart people, so that I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, and Ryan can't read, by the way, so
It's not that I can't read. It's just my mind is like, what are you doing? You're reading a book? No, you're not. Not anymore. You're not reading a book.
Yeah.
Like, well,
oh yeah.
So I rely on him to read and kind of tell me on things. Unless I get on audio. Can you get this on audio?
I
book.
It's something that I have thought about, but it's...
Oh, don't worry about it. I'll read it to him.
It's super easy to get stuff like... Oh, yeah, right. Well, no, because other people have asked, and there's just to be as inclusive as possible, it would be nice to get them in an audiobook. And, and I'll have to look at that later on. But it's not as easy as people think. You usually have to hire like voice actors and stuff, or I would have to do it, and nobody wants to listen to me for that long.
Right.
I promise. So.
We actually talked to a guy that was working on. He actually signed up with some website where he was doing audio books and stuff, and it was kind of cool. They'd send him stuff, and he would, pick and choose what he wanted to do. And one of the books, It was funny. That was Joe. He, Ghost Joe is his name. They had this book, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Let me do that." So they sent him this book, and it was like 600 pages. He was like, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do that." And he said there was a lot of big words in there I couldn't pronounce, and he was like, "Yeah, I decided not to do it." It was like a book on demonology or something.
That's bad for me, because like my wife constantly, like I'll use like I said, I'll listen to smart people. I can repeat what they say, and then I'll say a big word, and my wife will be like, "Spell that." And I'm like, I don't have to. I can say it.
Yeah. He listens to smart people, and then he comes over here and hangs out with me.
Yeah.
So,
myself humble.
But anyway, enough about us. We're here to talk about you. So I know we have never talked about this, and I've known about it for years, and I don't know why we've never gotten into this conversation. But can you tell our fans what Fortean actually is?
Sure. Yeah. Well, honestly, this comes up a lot. When it's kind of funny when we were deciding what we wanted to name, the Singular Fortean Society, like we had played around with some names, and I really felt strongly that I wanted to use the word Fortean because it has certain connotations, one, and two, I didn't want to be another, society or organization or whatever with just the word paranormal in it, because it's too common. And so, Fortean, of course, comes from the early 20th century collector of weird news stories, Charles Fort. And so what he would do is he would collect these weird news stories from all over the world, and he would compile them, and he would write these, frankly, expansive volumes on all of this weird stuff that he had heard about and collected from different sources. And he would sort of speculate, most often tongue-in-cheek, about what could be behind it all. He would recognize and point out like different commonalities between phenomena. And it really ran the gamut, from everything from like ghost ships to rains of frogs to weird lights in the sky. And he's one of the most influential paranormal researchers of all time, literally. If you like, well, I tell people, because like John Keel has seen somewhat of a resurgence, I think, in the paranormal community, or his work has. Mm-hmm. He passed away some time ago, but I tell people you really can't understand Keel if you haven't read Charles Fort, because Fort was a huge influence on Keel's investigation and writing style, and sort of how he approached these subjects. And the same could be said for a lot of authors, Brad Steiger, Lauren Coleman, like pretty much everybody I had mentioned as being some of my biggest influences. You have to remember a lot of these guys, when they started writing about this weird stuff, like it was the 60s and 70s. Oh, yeah. And so they didn't have, there was no John Keel for John Keel to read when he was learning how to do this, right, and getting out there and investigating UFOs and stuff. And so, people read Charles Fort, and he's, and you guys, I'm sure can appreciate this. Like Charles Fort is to like a paranormal investigation and research what like H.P. Lovecraft is to horror. Right. An early 20th century author who was honestly probably the single largest influence on all of it, like the entire genre. So
yeah. And it's funny, I had kind of read up on him, and I knew a little bit about him, but not a whole lot. But Charles Fort is to paranormal writing, like say somebody like Henry Price, who did a lot of investigations back years ago. I mean, Henry Price is the grandfather of paranormal investigation. But I like the way you put that into words, because I don't know that I could have said that the way, as eloquently as you said that.
You
Oh,
just
thank
said
you.
eloquently. Right?
Yeah. But yeah, and I don't know why we haven't done,
I mean,
a Fortean show. I mean,
Look at us. What do you
because
mean?
it's what we talk about all the time.
Oh, yeah,
though.
yeah.
I mean, it truly is.
Yeah.
Now I am going to tell you that I have never read any of Charles Fort's stuff. I may look into it in the future. But I'm just going to throw this out there. I think one of the biggest, and this probably won't come as a surprise to you because I talk about him all the time, but one of the biggest influences for me when it came to paranormal writing was Troy Taylor.
Oh, sure.
I have read so many of his books. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was the first restraining order.
It's funny. I've been begging him to be on the show forever, but he is so busy, and it's funny.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
But I am going to tell you though, after reading what I've read out of this. So folks, what I've been reading is Strange Tales of the Impossible, written by Tobias Wayland. I am probably, I don't know, almost about 3/4 of the way through it. And, I'm a slow reader. Absolutely love the way you write, man. I have been mesmerized the whole time I've been reading this. I love that you actually took the time and went out and talked to these people. I know some of the stories were through email, but there's a lot of stuff in there where you actually went out and hunted these people down. And
that's what I like to do. Yeah. It's and I try to be very upfront about this because you're right. Sometimes it is just email correspondence. Generally, I won't publish anything that I am not at least able to verify somebody's identity through, So
right.
if it is in email correspondence, I've at least got enough information from that person by corresponding with them where I was able to verify the details of their story and their identity and stuff. Because we get one-off emails and, you respond to it and the person who wrote it never replies or anything. And those, I've got a special column for them on the website called Reports from the Void. And I'm real upfront and I say, hey, I don't know, dude, this was a one-off email. It's a pretty cool story. Take it or leave it. I don't know what to tell you. But that other stuff, the stuff I actually really publish, at the very least, we're able to verify the verifiable details. Yeah. But no, you're right. An email is it's not as good as speaking to somebody face to face or even over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of get the tone of their voice and how they sound and the little aneurysm, the thing they use.
Right.
You tell kind of if they're full of it or if they're telling you the truth or.
Yeah. Well, and that's like us too. I mean, we've done some phone interviews, but I would much rather do this. I can look at your face and we can actually have a conversation.
It's way more comfortable. I mean, for me too. That's why as soon as I logged in, I was like, "Oh, do you guys do video? Give me 3 minutes. I will get set up for video."
Absolutely,
no because it's weird otherwise. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And for us, we just want to make whoever. Some people don't want to be on video.
Right. So, we've had a couple. Well, we've got one guy that absolutely, he's been on the show a couple times and he does not want to do video. And we're fine with that.
Cool.
We still do it through Zoom, but his screen is blank,
Yeah.
And we're fine with that. But, we just want to make people as comfortable as possible. So.
And then we make them super uncomfortable.
Well, right. We haven't got to that point with you yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
No, we just it's cool because I talk to some people and I try to make it a point to myself as a little game to myself. I'm I want to see if I can get these people out of their little zone,
out of their shell.
Sometimes people they're super, just straightforward. They don't laugh too much. They don't joke around too much. So I try to do what I can to get them out of that. But sometimes it backfires.
Well,
sometimes it
and even tonight, I was like, okay, I've never talked to this guy for an extended period of time. God, I hope he can talk. Because we've had some, you always worry about, are you going to get somebody in there that you're going to have to dig and pull information out of, and we've been very fortunate, I think it's because we are kind of laid back, we just like to have a good conversation with people,
Oh, I mean, honestly, nothing is worse. And this is the same, if I'm
on your end, yeah.
Like either interviewing somebody for a podcast or for an actual interview regarding an experience or something, like you don't want one word answers,
No.
And like that's just the absolute worst. And some people are shy, and I totally get that. So yeah, you do have to kind of suss out, a little more info. But yeah, I mean, at this point, well, heck, you guys know, I mean, I just presented at Haunted America. So hopefully I do okay
no, you're doing great. You're doing great. Believe me.
Yeah, it's crazy because, we've only been doing podcasts, almost 3 years now.
Almost 3 years, yeah.
But, that was our first convention we went to. We had planned on doing a bunch of conventions.
Last year, and it got ruined.
Of course it got ruined.
Yeah, nobody was really doing many conventions.
Yeah.
So that kind of threw us back some. But what's cool about our podcast is that we don't only do podcasts. We are working our way into doing investigations. I used to have a team that used to investigate, So we're going to be doing investigations. We have some really cool people we've met that have
have invited us places,
places and things. So we incorporate so much, and sometimes it's like hard for me to be like, okay, we need to start doing this. We need to start doing this.
We're in the works of releasing our own haunted house. Which is probably going to happen. There's going to be a small opening this year, but then next year it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've just got our foot everywhere,
That's great. Like what kind of stuff are you guys interested in investigating? Like, is there one specific, aspect like ghosts or aliens?
Well, see, I am a big ghost guy. I have been fascinated with ghosts and the paranormal since I was probably 6-7 years old. And I can tell you exactly when it started. I got an album when I was a kid. It was Alfred Hitchcock's Ghost Stories for Little People, or for Young People. And I wore that album out. In fact, I still have a copy of it, and occasionally I'll throw it on, I mean, I'm old now. In fact, I'm gonna be 50 in a couple of weeks. So,
happy birthday.
Thank you. But, I've just been fascinated with paranormal just my whole life. I remember being a kid in school and going to the library and trying to find all the paranormal books in there, and I say paranormal, I read a lot about demons and Satanism and all that stuff, growing up all through, grade school and high school and all that stuff. I never have been part of an investigation team. I don't know why. I just have, because I have no friends. But I truly love it. When we talk about horror movies, those are some of my favorite horror movies too. I love the old school haunted house horror movies. And while I'm on that note, we were talking about Charles Fort, and when I pulled this up, because I was kind of looking at some of his stuff online, and it was talking about how he had started the Fortean Society in Chicago, I think it was. Was that right? New York. I'm sorry, New York.
Right.
And he had, they were talking about some of the other members, and I was like, okay, Vincent Gaddis, even T. Sanderson, A. Emmett, and then all of a sudden I see Frank Lloyd Wright. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Frank Lloyd Wright is the guy he was an architect, and he created, or I don't know what the word is for that, but he was the architect of the house that they used in the original Vincent Price film, The House on Haunted Hill. That is a Frank Lloyd Wright.
He's actually really famous. He's super famous here because I actually live in Wisconsin, and so everybody around here knows Frank Lloyd Wright because he lived in Wisconsin and did designed a lot of stuff here. Absolutely.
See, and for me, as far as investigations, I love cryptids. I love everything. We have a guy that we just had on the show who's one of our good buddies. We haven't met him in person yet, but he's a good friend of ours, D.A. Roberts. He's an author. He writes a lot of cool books about cryptids.
He writes a lot of werewolf novels. He's really big into the werewolf lore and stuff.
It's pretty cool.
It's all fictional, but I've read some of his work and it's pretty good.
But
I mean,
and we're gonna do some stuff on the Ozark Howler because we live. I mean, I'm right there.
Yeah.
I'm right there where some of the people have.
There was a sighting right in between us, and we live about 7-8 miles apart. Mm-hmm. And there was a sighting right in between us back in 2018, actually. So DA wants to come up and do a little investigation with us.
But
and we're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Ozark Howler, have you ever heard of that?
No. What is that, like a dog man?
It's kind of.
Like a giant dog type thing, creature.
Yeah, it's been described as cat-like too. I mean, it's really bizarre. I think when you look at it, like witnesses' depictions of this thing, you could almost consider it a hellhound.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. So it's quadrupedal, not like
right. Glowing red eyes, horns, kind of thing.
Very dark. But it's just cool stuff like that. I mean, growing up, I've always been, like I said before, I've had a lot of experiences. We grew up in a place, a lot of Native Americans around the area we grew up, and we would always find arrowheads and tomahawk heads and things like that. So we had a lot of experiences growing up with some, paranormal stuff. That was kind of hard to explain. As a kid, our parents kind of shoot away with people from it,
Like he was saying earlier, your parents just don't believe you,
So, I do have to say, my parents now are, because I don't want to throw my parents under a bus. They're wonderful, loving people.
And
they're very supportive of what I do now. And I think that if they would have known that this was a real thing that was going to continue into adulthood, they probably would have treated it differently. But they weren't experiencing any of it at the time. It was really just me, so it was very easy for them to just write it off.
I was lucky. I think my parents were experiencing it too, but I think they tried to keep us calm down about it, so we weren't scared or something. Saying it's okay. Which it was okay. There wasn't really nothing malicious, but I don't know. I've always had this weird thing with this fight against evil or this fight against something, it's always been in my blood. I get this presence. People need to understand that there is evil in the world. There is evil and there is light. That's the way I look at it. Can't have one without the other.
Right.
But it goes to a further deep conversation with it. It's funny because I was just watching a show earlier about, it's called Surviving Death. It's about close encounters, of death, and people dying and coming back and the things they've seen and things like that, reincarnation. And it's crazy because there was a lady on there and she was canoeing on this river, or kayaking, my bad. And she was kayaking on this river and she drowned. She had no oxygen for 30 minutes to her body. They ended up bringing her back, but she described what happened when she passed away. And then she came back and, it was crazy because they said that she would have brain damage because there's no oxygen but she has no brain. She's actually spinal cord surgeon. So she does work. She does surgery on people's spines. But what's crazy about it is that besides her coming back after being so long, passed away. And,
if that wasn't strange enough.
Well, she said these beings told her that her son was going to die. Her oldest son was going to die at a young age unexpectedly. And she said in her head, she thought for years, he was 9 years old at the time. She thought for years, like, he's not going to make it past his 18th birthday, And she was talking about this. She's like, we got to his 18th birthday and we were all at the skiing event and we told him, she said, I went in the morning, told my son, please be very careful, boss. Like, anyway, he didn't die on his 18th birthday, but he did die on his 21st birthday unexpectedly in a car accident.
Wow.
And and it's crazy. The doctors the stories these people tell are crazy. And like, for me, just to be in the paranormal thing, I'm a dimensional guy. So I believe in dimensions, uppers and lower dimensions, higher frequency, lower frequency beings. I don't know if you've ever got into any of that or if you've.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in just a minute.
Sure. Well, hold on. One second. I want to back up a sec. So these beings tell this lady that her kid is going to die. What was the point of that? That almost seems cruel.
You say that, and she said that's
that is cruel.
That's the exact same thing she said in this documentary. She's like, and I was thinking, why are you telling me this? What's the point of telling me this? And I guess there was a reason. I don't know. She was like, I've spent years of my life just worried about this, It's crazy, and you're right. I have children, so I know why. Just the fact of knowing or having that event, and then thinking one of your children's going to die, like you just want to put them in a bubble and not ever let them, But she let him live his life or whatever. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's just totally cruel,
Yeah, you have to wonder where those particular entities are coming from and what their real motivation is, because that doesn't seem right.
See, it's crazy to me because like I haven't read your book. Sorry, I'm not a big reader.
I know you don't read. It's fine.
There you go. But it's funny because we're on this. Evidently, I'm on the same wavelength as some things that are in your book here. So
there's a little section in your book that I kind of want to get into, and it is so funny that he would bring that up because I picked this out of your book and I kind of wanted to pick your brain on it a little bit.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
And it's so funny, because I told him, I said, I've got this section in here I want to read, and don't get offended. I'm not a very good reader, and I don't know if I can see in the dark here. Where's that flashlight we have?
Here, I got one right here on my phone.
Oh, give me a little flashlight here.
Yeah.
If you mind.
I'm going to turn a light on in here.
Okay, yeah, you go right ahead.
There we go. It's getting dark out here.
Oh my God!
Which,
you've got the ghost book. I've got that same book.
The Hans Holzer one.
Yeah.
It's one of my oldest books, I think.
Is it really?
I've owned it, almost as long as I've owned anything else.
Yeah, a friend of mine bought it for me for my birthday about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. I'm with you on the time thing. I don't know. It might have been yesterday, but.
I'm pretty sure I've owned this copy for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, maybe.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's crazy.
It's old. I mean, because books don't survive that long.
No, typically not.
Just stuff happens to them, especially when you're in your 20s, you move and things.
And you're moving a
disappear.
lot. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Do you mind me reading a little excerpt out of your
not
book?
At all.
Okay. So this was a section. This was, I don't even remember what chapter this was. It was like chapter 3.
I just turned the light on so I could grab a copy. And
Yeah. This is actually on page 38.
Okay.
And it says, imagine encountering a being who exists only in 2 dimensions. We, as 3-dimensional beings, would be able to pass in or out of its world at will. And all it would ever be able to see of us in this is a tiny sliver within the 2-dimensional plane, which it can perceive. Now, imagine encountering a being who exists in 5 or more dimensions. I told you this would be right up Ryan's alley. 5 or more dimensions. What would the sliver of them were capable of perceiving look like? I'm going to continue on to the next paragraph because this is what really got me, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain on this. It says, in these things, whatever they are, interact directly with and manipulate our consciousness. Okay? As they sometimes appear to do, then there doesn't seem to be a reliable way to really observe them. Again, if we're even capable of fully doing so in the first place, at least not with our physical senses, maybe that's why we like to come at night when your minds are drifting into altered states of consciousness. Now, here is why this really stuck out to me so bad, is I really started thinking about people who see these strange beings and even ghosts. Is it because, and I don't know, is it because our brains are in a different consciousness? What does consciousness really have to do with us seeing these spirits and these cryptids and even Mothman? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if there is some causal relationship, but there's certainly a correlation that I've noticed. And it does seem like many witnesses to really any of these phenomena, it could be ghosts or aliens, UFOs, cryptids, seem to at least be in a likely situation where they could be in an altered state of consciousness. Now, people hear that phrase and they start thinking, that you have to be on LSD or something to achieve an altered state of consciousness. The reality is, we all enter in and out of them literally every single day, because that's what sleep and dreaming is. But then, going to sleep and waking up, and really, frankly, quite a few situations within our day itself. I mean, literally, just a vivid daydream is an altered state of consciousness. Highway hypnosis is an altered state of consciousness.
I remember reading that in there. You were talking about that for a while.
And so you look at when people tend to see this stuff, and what I saw happening over and over again is you would have people, well, like myself often, who were in bed. Sometimes they were, already awake. Sometimes they were awoken by whatever was happening to them. Often you would see people, driving or otherwise distracted in some way. Maybe they're zoned out. Maybe they're not really paying attention because they're doing something else. And I couldn't help but wonder if what I was seeing was people in various altered states of consciousness, but related, because all of those states are similar. Like the brain waves that you experience during any one of those states are actually pretty remarkably similar. There's not that much difference between, frankly, being in a deeply meditative state or experiencing highway hypnosis and the brain waves you have when you're asleep or just going to sleep or just waking up. And so, and I'm not a scientist, so just full disclosure there. This is something that I had to go and look up to see what real.
But I knew you put it in your book. You had to have done some research on this.
Right. Yeah. So, but I couldn't help but wonder, if what I was seeing were people just experiencing these altered states of consciousness, which somehow led or at least facilitated these experiences, because you look at some of the qualities of these experiences, and the way that they tend to, break the laws of physics as we know them anyway.
Right,
For instance,
right.
like you've got something like Mothman. Now, Mothman, by all accounts, should be biologically impossible. There's no way that anything with a roughly human or humanoid body shape that's 7 feet tall or something should ever be able to get off the ground with a 12 or 15 foot wingspan. You'd need 25, 30 feet, plus. So, combine that with things like glowing red eyes and people feeling hypnotized or sensing like a palpable sense of evil or this unnatural fear or feeling like the thing is staring through them. And you've got something that really seems like it is interacting, using sort of consciousness as the medium of communication.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's certainly something that I love to speculate about because in a lot of ways it makes a lot of sense, and if you think about sort of what consciousness is, and I say right away that I'm like, nobody really knows what consciousness is. So when I talk about it, like take it with a grain of salt. I don't necessarily believe anything because I'm not at the point where I have enough information to say that, yes, I firmly believe this. But I think that it is the mark of a discerning intellect to be able to entertain an idea without necessarily fully subscribing to it. So,
absolutely.
So I think that if you start to sort of think about what consciousness might be, and you get into different ideas regarding it, like consciousness being this like non-local sort of force, similar to like gravity or something, where it sort of just pervades the entire universe, and we sort of tap into it, mechanically with our brains, and sort of become a part of consciousness and interact with it that way. And then you can start speculating about like how, maybe consciousness itself could be pervasive in other dimensions that maybe our physical bodies are not capable of necessarily interacting with. And so you've got these beings that might exist either, in this realm of consciousness, like that's just sort of what they are. They don't exist outside of it, or they're capable of manipulating it in certain ways. And it starts to make a lot of sense. It just fills in a lot of blanks for me. But, at the end of the day, none of us really know. And I'm fully prepared for somebody to come along and be like, well, no, we just proved all of that wrong. So start over.
Well, and I'm going to tell you right now. So just that little snippet in your book, which guys, if you get a chance, check out Tobias's book. It's been fantastic the whole way through. But that little snippet, I had never really thought in my own mind about consciousness being a part of this. And it really opened me up to, that possibly that is what's happening.
It's like we talked about before, though. We've talked about this. I don't know if you've ever looked into it. You probably have, though, with DMT. How people who do now, if you do ayahuasca or just you can do a chemical version of DMT. I know that usually the pharmaceutical version, we'll call it, for lack of a better term, only lasts like 15 minutes. Now, if you do ayahuasca, the way they do it, it lasts a long time. It's pretty,
You're going to get violently ill.
Yeah, so. She get violently ill. But what's cool about this is, what's cool about DMT, and I've never done it, but I've done a lot of research on the stuff and looked into it. And what's cool about it is talking about a consciousness. And it's pretty cool to think of. I talk about on here sometimes how we're all connected. Everyone is connected somehow on a link. People who do DMT, no matter where, I don't care if you're in New York City doing it or if someone is at the same exact time as.
Or in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or if you're in Brazil doing it, most time people see the same things as far as beings. They see a little being that's leading them through this, and they see what they call the clockwork elves. They see these certain things, and everyone that does it sees them.
And it's funny because a lot of their descriptions kind of remind you of a Wendigo.
Yeah, it's really cool to me that, and your body, your brain naturally produces DMT. That's kind of what helps your dream state. Your body goes into that.
Oh my God. You really need to listen to his last podcast that came out. I don't remember who your guest was. God, the name escapes me. But they got into a conversation about DMT.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
So cool. So, you know, and when you pass away, when you die, your body dumps this DMT into your system, you know, so you get that euphoric feeling. It's cool because you can get that effect. It's like a key. It's a doorway to another dimension, I believe. And it's crazy because I've never done it, but
that's funny because you kind of sound like a doper right now.
I assumed you were on DMT during this conversation.
Hey, that's how this show started, okay?
You know, it's funny, and JT knows me, and I don't drink, I don't smoke, I've never done.
I don't drink either. Cheers.
I've never done drugs a day in my life, but I just know so much about them. I don't know. I've always.
That sounds horrible, dude.
I know. Well, we know what sucks is I've been to, and it's horrible. I've seen so many people pass away from drugs, so yeah. I keep myself. I just keep myself up on it so I know what's going on.
Hey, I got an excuse. I got a birthday coming up. I'm trying to keep my tolerance up.
You've been doing it all year.
Well, you know,
I didn't even know that alcohol counted. I mean,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, you know.
But talking about a consciousness, what do you think about that? How we're kind of all on a certain wavelength to a point, because you talk about how you can do.
Oh, you're talking about what are they, mass consciousness or something like?
How like I can sit here and convince enough people to think something, and it's going to happen because I'm convincing them to think it.
Oh, group think.
But
okay.
Also on a real note, like with DMT, when people take it, they do see the same thing, no matter where they're at in the world.
Right.
They don't have to be in the same place.
Sure. Well, I think that's really interesting. So speaking specifically sort of to, people using DMT's experiences with, the observation of machine elves and stuff, that could be a few things probably. Some people might say that there's something structurally about the human mind that causes people to, experience these same like archetypal figures. And so that's, just sort of a Jungian way of saying it's all in your head, but the reason everybody sees it as the same thing is because they're all human beings. But
in your head. Oh, sorry.
Being rude.
Nice.
Sorry.
But I like that song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Cranberries.
But it could also be, of course, that like I think you were alluding to, it opens people up to this other sort of dimension of reality where they're able to see these things that exist alongside of us invisibly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start thinking about, I guess, sort of the nature of consciousness, if you are willing to entertain the idea that there is sort of this universal force that is consciousness. It's not something necessarily created exclusively by the human, mind and experience, but rather it can exist outside of the physical body. Then that starts to explain all kinds of things, from precognition to telepathy. To some of those experiences that you're talking about, it just makes even more sense for people to be experiencing the same thing if on some level we are sharing access to this sort of universal consciousness.
Yeah. It's cool because it's like plants. I don't know if you know this, but there's certain trees that will change the taste of their leaves and change their chemical. So giraffes eat these certain trees. If they're a little bit away from another group of trees, say 200, 300, 400 yards away, the trees coming up will change their chemical, I guess, makeup,
compound or whatever. Yeah.
to taste different so that they won't get ate. That's just crazy to me. I've
Is that really consciousness though?
Well, what I'm getting at with that is I've always thought that humans on a level are all connected at a certain level, because when something happens to someone, no one likes to see anyone pass away.
No.
Unless you have something wrong with you, which most time people who
unless that guy was a real dick.
Yeah. But no one likes to see, even people you hate though. You don't ever wish death on someone.
No.
Sure.
I just, you feel that. And someone you don't know, you've never met in your life, but like you can see that someone passed away, like, especially for me with children. Anytime a child gets hurt or something happens to a child, it really affects me.
Yeah. Whether it's your own or not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know these kids, but like it affects me. I just think that it's really cool to think that there's something else out there. There's something that there's more to it. I don't see how people can go through life thinking that there's nothing. It's just, you live, you die, that's it.
That's it.
I don't believe that. I believe you level up or you level down in these dimensions as you go. And my son, and we've had this conversation talking about reincarnation. Mm-hmm. My youngest son, it's crazy the things that he talks about, and he's only 4, but he can have a conversation with you like we're talking right now. It's weird, but he talks about things that like he'll be like, Dad, you're my favorite dad. I'm like, well, I'm your only dad, bud. And he's like, no, you're not my first dad, but you're my favorite dad. And then he'll be like, I want to see my sister. And my oldest will be like, we don't have a sister. He's like, you don't have a sister, but I have a sister. Or, it's just, it's crazy.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
And that stuff is just, it's super cool. I don't see how people could go through life thinking that there's nothing else out there. It'd be so boring. Yeah. You know what I mean? I see people
pretty boring.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, honestly though, like that means even more for you though, because knowing that there were other dads and you're still the favorite, like that's gotta feel
just like this.
Yeah, that's pretty damn cool. That's pretty damn cool.
Honestly,
like this podcast, I'm the favorite.
So let me hit you with something else, because I'm sure you get asked us a million times. I'm probably going to screw up the title on this, but you did a story called Darkness that was darker than dark. Or
no. Okay. Admittedly, I'm not great at titles. I'm not, but like it was part of the darkness is darker than the rest.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. It's in your book, but it's a very cool story, and it was a personal experience for you.
Yes. Yeah. So that was one and I'm actually glad that you brought that up too, because I think when I started talking about my personal experiences, like I talk about the stuff when I was really, really young, that sort of, half remembered just like snippets of like experiences when I was like 3. And people think that's all my experiences were. And they're like, well, you were 3. Maybe you dreamed it, whatever. Yeah. But no, I mean, they continued throughout my life. And so the particular experience that you're referencing was in my early 20s. And I was living at home at the time, sort of deciding what I wanted to do. And I ended up going back to school. But so I had gone to bed one night, and there's nothing unusual about that night when I went to bed, but I ended up waking up in the middle of the night, and which was unusual, and there didn't seem to be any immediate reason for it. And so I wake up and I look around my room because I'm just very suddenly awake. And, as I'm looking around, this is in the suburbs. We lived in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin at that time. My parents still live there. And so there's some ambient light, from living in the suburbs coming in through the windows. And so I can kind of see the outline of everything in my room. And so everything's kind of where it's supposed to be, but my perspective seems weird. And it takes me a second to realize that the reason everything seems off is because I'm floating several feet above my bed. And as I turn my head to my left, I see this figure, this like solid black, look man-shaped, frankly. If circumstances had been different, I might have thought that there was an intruder or something. So I see this solid black, like man-shaped, like humanoid figure to my left. And now keep in mind, I can move during this time, because I'm moving my head around to look, and I'm capable of doing that. But I decided, since I was floating, that it probably wasn't a great idea for me to move a whole hell of a lot. Yeah. So I didn't, I turned my head to my left, and I'm like, well, this ain't right. And I have the distinct impression, like in that moment, that I'm not supposed to be awake for this. It just didn't seem like this was something that I should be awake for. Like whatever is happening to me, I was supposed to be unconscious throughout. And so as I turn my head to my left and I see this figure standing there, it reaches its hand out and it puts its hand on my chest. And I interpreted that as being comforting, because I thought in that moment that this thing was probably like, well, this guy, like, holy crap, this guy's not supposed to be awake right now. What do I do? And so it reaches its hand out and places it on my chest. And as it does that, I'm lowered back down to my bed, and then it just vanishes. And at that point, I'm just lying there on top of my covers. I certainly hadn't gone to sleep on top of my covers, and I just thought about what had happened. Because I'm sitting there like, well, what the hell was that? I didn't get up and wake my parents up, because at that point there was no use to doing that. I wasn't hurt. By then I knew that if whatever I was interacting with had wanted to physically harm me, I would be physically harmed. And so it was just this weird thing. And I just kind of, I just laid there with it for a while, going over it in my head. And then I went back to sleep. And I woke up the next day, and, I had that moment where I was like, oh God, did that really happen? And yes, it did really happen. Yeah. And it was weird. It was just one of those things that seemed to happen to me every once in a while.
That's a cool story. And that wasn't the only big experience that happened to you in that house.
We have to buy the book to see the rest of it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not that guy. Like, there's always enough in these books where I couldn't possibly get through all of it.
Yeah, because there was another story that I remember reading about you walking through the dining room.
Yeah, this would have been around the same time, actually. Yeah, and so this was weird. Now, I had seen shadow people sort of off and on throughout my life. And I don't know that this next experience had anything to do with shadow people, but I always kind of associated it with that for whatever reason, maybe just because it was dark. But so my folks, they were very sensitive to lights being on, and they insisted on sleeping with their door open. And so I had to be super careful about which lights I had on, because I always stayed up later than them, because I was 21, of course I did. Yeah. And so I had to be really careful which lights I had on. So if I was, say, leaving the kitchen to go upstairs, because my room was at the very top of the stairs on the second floor, then I would have to, turn off the kitchen light and then just kind of navigate through the dark to the stairs and go upstairs. And I had learned how to do that because I knew where everything was in this dining room. There's a dining room between the kitchen and the stairs, and I had it memorized. I knew where to step so the floor didn't creak, everything, how to not run into the table.
This guy snuck into his house a lot.
Oh, quite a few times. Yeah. So I had just gotten done eating, and because I actually was working second shift at that time, but I came home, I had eaten, and I was leaving the kitchen. So I turned the light out, and you know that moment after you turn a light out where things are just like impossibly dark, but you see like the ghosts of like all the furniture and everything you were just looking at, kind of shining there for a second. So I have that, you know, I turn the light out and I see the ghosts of all the furniture in this dining room, and I start kind of slowly navigating it as they fade. And I am past the table almost to the door that leads into like the family room, and then you turn left and you upstairs. And I feel this presence, and like the thing I related to the most is, you know, walking in the dark and like feeling something is there right before you trip on it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I feel this thing right next to me. So I stop, because that's weird, because nothing's supposed to be there. You know, it was to my left, and there shouldn't have been anything to my left at all. And so I stop, and when I do, I feel like this breath, really. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. I mean, it could be wind, I guess, but I feel this breath, and I hear this loud hiss at the same time, like right in my face. And so I kind of freeze up for a second, and I'm just like, you know, leave me alone. Yeah, I didn't even say it like that loud. It was more of a whisper. I'm just like, I just steel myself for a second, and I'm just like, leave me alone, and I just go upstairs, right? And yeah, I mean, that was that experience.
Yeah, very trippy. Whenever I read through that, the hair on the back of my neck kind of stood up, because I grew up in a ranch style house, and I remember our living room was very active, or well, it wasn't really the living room, it was the family room. You know, growing up, and you know, your parents always had that room that like you couldn't sit on the furniture and stuff. You know?
Oh yeah, no, you just had to know the difference between the living room and the family room.
Yeah,
it's important.
You just had to pass through it and not touch anything. You know?
Right.
And that was right in the middle of the house, and it was always I always got weird feelings walking through there in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Shoot,
that is such a cool story, though.
On here for, I don't know how long you got. I don't want to keep you up. I don't.
Oh, I don't even know what time it is.
It's 8:15.
Oh, okay. You know, I've got a little bit. You know,
well, I'll tell you what,
I'll wrap it up soon-ish. Sure.
I definitely want to. I got a feeling that you kind of have some stuff about aliens. And stuff. Maybe sometime down the road we can get you on.
We can get into that. Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. We'd love to have you back on, man. This is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I got to ask you something before we get off of here, because we always ask everybody, because that's what we do. You mentioned that you liked horror. What's your favorite horror movie?
Oh man, that's super, super tough. I'll tell you what, how about the horror movie that I've seen more than any other horror movie? Because that's as close as we're going to get.
Yeah.
There was a time in my like early 20s where I watched Return of the Living Dead every single weekend, because we
applaud you, sir.
Fast. I mean, like the practical effects are amazing. It's hilarious. It still manages to be scary, even though it's hilarious.
It is still a fantastic film, too.
Everything about it, yeah.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, because like one of my favorites is Return of the Living Dead 2.
Yeah.
I like them. I love both the part 2s.
Yeah. Part 2 is, I mean, the thing I love about part 2 is that like you've literally got actors from the first one just playing different roles.
Yeah, playing different characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite part about part 2 was when Michael Jackson shows up at the electrical grid place. Yeah.
Right.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great one to do.
Yeah. My favorite movie's Halloween 1978.
That's
cliche,
a classic.
but
it's a classic for a reason. I'm a big I love John Carpenter.
Yeah,
anything he's ever made. So yeah.
I just heard about a new movie. Well, it's not a new movie, but it's an old movie. It was a made-for-TV movie back in the 80s that I'd never even heard of that he did. something about we're watching you or something like that. I am going to have to find that and check it out because I'm a huge Carpenter fan.
I need to know what that is.
Yeah,
huge Carpenter fan.
For me, this is probably why I'm a dimensional guy as far as
wise. Well, and that's why I said that earlier when I started in with the little excerpt from your book. I was like, oh, dude, this is right up your alley because, you know, the whole dimensional thing.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite movies of all time is Phantasm.
Yeah.
That's another great one. Yeah.
Series,
great film.
It's like a dimensional thing, you know? I don't know.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, I know you're big into, you know, Mothman and, you know, stuff like that. But what about Bigfoot? I mean, are you interested in that?
Oh, definitely. You know, and we've gone out investigating Bigfoot sightings before because we don't really limit ourselves to any one particular aspect of paranormal. We really do it all. One of our good friends, Jay Bachochin, is a Bigfoot researcher in southeastern Wisconsin here. And he does a lot of research in the southern unit of the Kettle Moraine State Forest. And so we've been out there with him a number of times. And we've experienced all kinds of weird stuff. Well, honestly, a lot of it isn't necessarily like overtly related to Bigfoot, although it all might be, you know, if you go for some of the more paranormal explanations. But yeah, we've seen, you know, strange orbs of light out there. You know, definitely heard all kinds of weird stuff. And Emily and I, that's my wife, she and I both enjoy being outside. Like we love nature. And so we're used to being outside and hearing, you know, normal outside stuff, which can be scary. Like just hearing a deer take off can be scary if you don't know what it is.
Well, you know what's cool about Bigfoot is that we know it actually used to be a real creature. With Gigantopithecus. So, and all the Native American tribes all have some form of Bigfoot in their little. Sure. So who knows? Gigantopithecus may have been around closer to the, you know, time of the Native Americans, which is not too far, you know, ago. Yeah. It may still be out there. That's what's cool is that they actually have evidence of.
Sure. Yeah, we've actually had several conversations with numerous people about Bigfoot being an interdimensional being. Yeah. There's a big theory out there about that, and we've entertained that a few times. You know what would be really cool is to get him and DA in the same room together.
Oh yeah.
And us have a conversation. Dude, you guys would hit it off. You know, two authors talking about cryptids. Oh my God.
Yeah, because I love cryptids too.
Sure.
I love that stuff. It's just that's what's cool about this whole genre of everything is that there's so much out there.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely.
So much done, so much to talk about. But yeah, I know that we've had you on here for a while now. I don't want to keep you up, and
we don't want to keep you up all night. We could though. We could talk for hours.
We did a 5-hour freaking interview with 2 directors and 2 actors from UK, from England.
It was.
And it was 5 hours.
We were up all night.
Oh wow! You almost have to break that up into like several episodes.
Yeah, it was a good time though.
Fun.
But
I would definitely love to get you on sometime again. I know you're.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure,
definitely.
So no rush.
Let's try and set that up sometime, and
we'll keep
you know how to get a hold of me.
We'll keep you in the loop, man.
For sure,
keep you in the loop, man.
This has been awesome. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been awesome talking to you,
man.
Thanks
for having me. Yeah, this is super fun.
Like I said, I really enjoy the book. You know, the Strange Tales book has been phenomenal. I cannot wait. I'm trying to get to the end of it so that I can start the Mothman book. So excited, man. I'm so glad we got to talk to you tonight.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, this has been a lot of fun. It's not always
it's not always like this
I get
for
to
you,
talk
I'm
to
sure.
people who love horror movies.
Yeah.
And, you know, are into the same things as me. So it's great. It's cool. It's great.
Well, man, we're here all the time, man. Anytime you want to come on and just talk about anything, you know, we're here, man. We'll talk to you about anything. Cool. I am kind of curious though. Do you have anything? I mean, I realize this book just came out, but are you working on anything new?
We are we're always investigating stuff. And so in terms of, I guess, stuff that's coming up, we filmed a documentary with Small Town Monsters not too long ago. And that should be coming out later, I think later this year. But who knows? Could be either going to be late this year or early next year, but that's on the trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman. So
sweet.
Awesome. If you're interested in that phenomenon, then definitely check that out. And then we'll be at the Beast of Bray Road conference.
Oh my God. We have talked about that a lot.
Yeah. Right. And so that's coming up October 2nd, I believe. And Emily and I will be presenting there. And then, speaking of Troy Taylor, we will be down in Alton for Dead of Winter coming up in February. Yeah, 2020. What year is it? 2022. So,
okay. Yeah. Because that's usually January, February time frame, I think.
Yeah, they usually do that in February. I don't know. I don't know the exact date, but it's only August. Right. So anybody interested, it has tons of time to find out the exact day of.
Definitely.
Real quick, what was that? Was it Unexplained X you were talking about?
It's Expedition X.
Expedition X. Thank you.
Yeah. So you should be able to find it pretty easily on, because it originally aired on television, but I think they moved all that stuff to Discovery Plus or whatever.
Right.
You should be able to find it there pretty easily.
Yeah.
I probably
Awesome.
Before I go to bed, so I want to.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Sweet, man.
He's going to start stalking you.
Yeah.
He'd be hiding in the bushes outside your house. And
all I can say is you're welcome.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it was awesome talking to you. What we're going to do is we'll flip the camera, but stay on the line. We'll talk to you a little bit after we end this. All right.
Okay.
All right, man.
What's it, guys?
Great times, man. Great times.
Fort fam, we love you. Thanks for the support. And go check out these books, everything. And more importantly, as always, until next time,
keep it creepy.
These measures are